Welcome to How to Top Rope Solo. There are many ways to top rope solo. For today we're going to talk about MiniTraxing, which is using a Mini Traxion. So we're going to walk up to our anchor. A lot of times you're going to end up walking up to an anchor on top of a cliff or something like that. A lot of top rope soloing can be done somewhere where you don't have to climb the thing first, obviously, because you're alone, you may not be leading. We're going to pretend that these cams in here are bolts. So we're going to build our anchor. You bring a cordlet, whatever your choice of anchor is. Go ahead and build your anchor. Now, since you're top rope soloing, the rope will not be moving through the anchor, it will be fixed. So what I'm going to do is get two regular sized locking beaners opposed, put them in like so. I'm going to get my rope. I'm going to make a figure 8. Make it kind of pretty, easy to inspect so you're confident in it. I clip it through both beaners. I'm going to lock the beaners. Inspect my handiwork, make sure it's all equalized, everything's pretty, nothing's being stressed out. And that's it. So begins part 2. Okay, so in the first video I showed you how to build the anchor, set it up for top rope soloing. Now, I'm not going to go into all the details of top rope soloing because there are, I guess, almost an infinite amount of variations to how you can do this. So I'm going to keep it pretty simple. I'll show you one other way today because when you top rope solo, obviously you don't want to trust your life to any one device, any one point of contact or anything like that. The one that I showed you before uses a single strand that both of your devices will be clipped into. This way will show you how to do it with 2 strands, in case you want to put one device on one strand of rope and one on another. That is up to personal preference, the route type, the rock type, millions of factors, but it's mostly up to you. So in this situation, I've got 2 strands. All I really had to do was, for example, find the midway point on the rope, put a figure 8 on a bight, and put it there. Now in this situation, we wouldn't really want the beaners resting on here, but this is just a demonstration. You can see now we have 2 lines fixed. That way you can clip, for example, your Mini Traxion into this one, and then you can put your basic or ascender or whatever other device you're using on this strand. So if for whatever reason one of these is, becomes chopped through on a flake or an edge or something like that, you still have another strand. That is theoretically the most safe way to do this. I find it unlikely it's going to happen, but again, that's up to personal preference. I don't normally top rope solo on something where there's a lot of sharp edges, but if I'm lead soloing or aid climbing or doing some sort of fancy stuff, maybe I want to do that. But of course, with a 70-meter rope in this case, that's going to limit the pitch length to 35 meters. So it just depends on the application. If you're just going to a cliff, you're probably not going to need a whole lot of rope, so you can do this. Okay, so I built my anchor. I inspected it, I threw the rope over the edge of the cliff, and either I walked down or I rappelled. However I got back to the bottom, and I'm back here again. Now, the devices aren't going to work very well unless you're going to have some weight at the bottom of the rope. Otherwise, they're just going to pull the rope up like this. So what we're going to need to do is create some friction, create some weight at the bottom. Now, there's a lot of different ways to do this. You just need some weight on the bottom of the rope. I've got this water bottle right here with some webbing on it. You can use that. It's more than heavy enough. I got a bunch of cams. I can hang all these cams up there, Or better yet, since I'm a super smart guy, I've got my rope in a bag and it's feeding out a single line. Now this is the best way in my opinion because you don't need extra crap. You might not have that stuff anyway because if you're top rope soloing, you may not have a bunch of cams or a big water bottle or something. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place a clove hitch on the rope, get a beaner of some sort, And I'm going to clip it into the rope bag. Locker, non-locker, personal preference. Now that this is hanging, the rope isn't really held down super tight. It's kind of important you don't have it really, really heavy, because at some point you're going to need to rappel down this line unless you have a second line. So you don't want it to be mega heavy. You don't want to have to be pulling this, 50-pound weight going up while you're trying to rappel down and relax and be by yourself and not have to deal with other people's stuff. So now it's right about here. As you can see, it's low enough that I can clip my devices to it and I don't have to struggle or anything. And that's it. In this segment of the video, I'm going to discuss the equipment that pertains to top rope soloing. So, for example, I've got a harness on me. Doesn't really matter what kind. You're going to be hanging in it a little bit more than usual. So maybe get one that's got a little more padding. Other than that, no real special considerations. I have 2 belay loops. We're going to ignore that today. That's for other soloing things, and it does come in handy for top rope soloing, but for the sake of that, we're not going to cover it today. So we're just going to pretend we just have this one standard sewn belay loop. Now, we've also got a daisy chain, which I will use when I climb up the top. I can clip it into the anchor. That way I can take all my devices off and still be clipped in. You can use, a pass, a piece of webbing, whatever it is you want to use. It's going to be a little different than leading, because you won't be able to just make a clove hitch and tie yourself in, because you're not actually tied in when you're climbing, because you're just on the devices. Okay, now what the devices you're going to need. The first thing you're going to need is a chest harness. You can make one out of webbing, but I personally prefer using something like this Black Diamond Vario. They're not very expensive. I think they're like $25. It's a 2-inch webbing, flat, nice and comfy. You can adjust it. It's got little keeper thingies, so that way it's not a big mess. When you make one your own, sometimes it can be a little bit of a mess. Nice thing about this, you can adjust it in case you're climbing in cold conditions. That way you can fit it over a lot of warm clothes. So I've got that. Now we've got to cover the devices. Since we are micro-tractioning today, you need a micro-traction, a Petzl micro-traction. I can't recall how much these are. 80 bucks, I want to say. It's the most expensive piece of gear you're going to have. You can go with a, what's the next size up? The next size up from this is like a Mini Traxion or something like that. That one has a cam that locks it in place a little more positively, but I don't like it as much for top rope soloing. It's not as compact. It also makes the rope feet at a slightly different angle. Not a big deal. You can use either one. I personally prefer this one, though. We've also got a Petzl Basic. A Petzl Basic is much like their Ascender, except there's no handle. Other than that, tooth cam, same as everything else. Now I've got 2 belay beaners. These are Black Diamond gridlocks, not the magnetic one. The magnetic ones, the gate doesn't open enough because the gate mechanism is large, so it's only like that. You can't really fit the micro traction on it very well. It's kind of a pain in the ass, so I prefer just a standard screw lock. I've got 2 of these. You can use a DMM, Belay Master. There are other ones out there, all kinds of ones out there. It keeps everything from cross-loading, keeps everything feeding nice and smoothly. You're going to find out through trial and error which one you like most, and that's the one you're going to settle on. If you want, you can take these right off the bat. I think it's a safe bet. Next thing I have is a piece of webbing, in this case a small sewn runner with a small eyelet on one end and a mallion. Bear with me if I mispronounce that, I don't speak French. These are used in canyoneering. They're also used for bail anchors and all that kind of jazz. It's a steel link. It's got all the rating information on it right there, all that kind of stuff. That's what's going to connect your harness to your chest harness, which is where your backup device goes. So what I'm going to do with that, as you can see, I have a small eyelet here which holds this rather securely so it doesn't move around a lot. It's not sloppy. And I've got a large open end. Going to get this large open end, I'm going to pass it through just the top part of my harness belay loop system. Girth hitch on there. I'm going to feed both parts of the chest harness through it, and I'm going to lock it up. It's a little awkward sometimes. And there you have it. You don't have to mess with it after this. You do want to inspect it every so often so it doesn't unscrew, because obviously that wouldn't be very pleasant. Got all this stuff on a large, in this case, let's see, it's a Camp Photon wire, which is a large, lightweight wire gate beener. Very good for holding all the equipment on one beener, so it's not a big mess. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to clip my devices to my belay loops. The basic goes on the bottom. This is your primary device. This is what you're going to be relying on most of the time. The other one's your secondary. It's your backup in case anything goes wrong, which again is unlikely, but it's not worth risking. That guy goes there and hangs out. On my Micro Traxion, I have engraved a small arrow, as well as my name, pointing up as far as the direction of travel, because I don't like putting it on there and, oh, whoops, I've got it upside down and flipping it over. I like to have it done right off the bat. Makes more sense. I can get back to climbing sooner. Open it up, make sure everything works, and clip that bad boy in, and you're ready to go. Okay, so now we're ready to do some soloing. What we're going to do first, we're going to inspect our harness, make sure we're tied it properly, make sure everything's good to go. Let me get my primary, which is the Petzl Basic. Flip that into the rope. Here's my Micro Traxion. Clip him in. Make sure it's going up. It's very important. Clip through. Lock the beener. Make sure you clip around the rope on the basic. Lock the beener. Everything's good. You're going to pull the slack through, make it nice and tight, and you're ready to go. Okay, I'm going to demonstrate falling. Now, normally when I'm climbing up, I'm going to pull the devices up, make sure they're nice and taut. That way a fall is a lot easier and you don't go as far. I'm not going to do this for this case. So this is going to demonstrate approximately how far you're going to fall in a normal one. Ah, man, that was a bad fall. I sure am lonely. Well, I'd like to go home now, so what I'm going to have to do is rappel. Good thing I brought my belay device, because if I didn't, I'd have some trouble. Now in my case, I've got this second belay loop here. I'm going to clip that into it. I'm going to unweight the device, unclip the guy right here, my basic, take him off rope, clip him right back in so I don't lose him. Here's where that heavy weight at the bottom comes in. Good thing it's not too heavy, so I'm not too tired. Since I'm so lonely and I want to go to Pizza Deck and get some pizza, feed it to the fat squirrels. And what I have to do, now that I've got it through here, if you got a gree-gree, you don't have to be as careful. Pull through, unweight the top device, lock the cam open. I can slowly lean back and begin my descent. I'm holding this device open because the Micro Traxion is a little more finicky and it'll close like that. So in theory, I've got a backup, though it's more annoying than that and not necessarily the one I'd like. Oh goody! The ground. I sure am ready for some pizza, squirrels. Good night.